Welcome back to Ben's Book Club. Today we are diving into the book Unshakable, building your indestructible foundation for personal and professional success. In this explainer, we're going to be unpacking a totally different approach to hitting those big goals of yours.
Let me ask you something. Have you ever found yourself working like 60 hours a week, completely burned out, but you feel like you literally haven't moved an inch? Yeah, we see this modern obsession with hustle culture everywhere. Meticulously tracking every single metric, doing all the so-called right things. But man, despite all that constant motion, you might still feel totally stuck in the exact same place. So this is where Jim Rohn's core premise comes in. He argues that our modern obsession with external tactics, stuff like networking, goal setting, and optimizing your daily routines, it actually creates this really fragile illusion of progress. Think of it like building a massive, heavy roof with absolutely no walls to support it. Those tactics, they're practically useless if your underlying internal character, your integrity, your wisdom, your patience is weak. The tactics are just the roof. Your character is the concrete foundation.
But what do we actually mean when we say character? Well, it's a built skill. Basically, it's who you are when absolutely nobody is watching. And we need to be clear here, it is not the same thing as your personality or your reputation. Those are usually just public shadows of your private decisions. You see, character isn't something you're just handed at birth. It's carved out, kind of like a sculpture, through all those quiet, daily choices you make. And that brings us to what Rohn calls the attraction model of success. The big idea here? Success isn't something you chase down. It's something you attract by the person you become. It completely flips the conventional script on its head. Instead of running around frantically chasing opportunities, building a rock-solid character naturally draws those opportunities, the right relationships, and the results directly to you.
The 12 Character Pillars, Jim Rohn's thematic framework.
To really grasp how Rohn's 12 bedrock qualities reinforce each other, we can group them into actionable themes. At the very base, you have your moral foundation. This includes courage, which is the willingness to act on your values even when you're under intense pressure or just plain scared. Then you've got integrity. That's making sure your words and your actions line up perfectly. It is a non-negotiable trust asset. And finally, responsibility, which really is the ultimate hallmark of personal maturity.
And the best way to practice true responsibility? Start by asking yourself, what is within my control? It requires a major shift. You have to step away from blaming your circumstances and instead put all your focus entirely on the choices and responses that are actually available to you. Now, a quick aside here, this is about empowering yourself and taking agency. It is absolutely not about getting trapped in some cycle of toxic self-blame.
Now that sense of responsibility, that's what fuels resilience. Because let's face it, progress almost never follows a straight line. You really need perseverance. That somewhat stubborn until mindset, where you just keep going long after most people would throw in the towel. But you also need flexibility, patience, and a sense of humor. Humor keeps your perspective grounded, and patience is the ultimate antidote to dropping your strategies like 3 seconds before they actually start working.
There's actually a super fascinating tension here between true flexibility and just having a lack of conviction. True flexibility means you're adjusting your methods, sure, but you remain firmly anchored to your core values. You bend so you don't break, right? A lack of conviction, on the other hand, is basically just blowing in the wind. It's abandoning your principles the second the weather gets a little rough.
So once you've got that resilience in place, you start to expand your personal capacity. This is where wisdom absolutely trumps raw intelligence, mainly because wisdom is practical judgment that you've actually earned through real experience. And let's talk about good health for a second. It's not just some optional reward you get to enjoy later once you've made it. It is literally the vehicle for your journey. It directly impacts your energy. And then there's confidence, which is this quiet self-trust that you have to actively earn.
Actually, let's take a quick second to reflect on that self-trust right now. Think about it. Is your confidence just kind of empty bravado and positive affirmations, or is it genuinely developed through action and hard evidence? Because true self-trust requires a real track record of responsible, repeated actions, not just hoping for the best with positive thinking alone. When you do all of this deep, foundational root work, it eventually blooms into visible results. Achievement is really just the external expression of all that disciplined inner effort. But here's the catch. You have to maintain those standards of strong character. If you abandon your foundational choices the minute you finally make it, well, that foundation is going to erode really quickly under the pressure of prosperity.
The modern application, character in today's workplace.
So when we apply this decades-old philosophy to our modern remote work era, it's wild how timeless these principles actually are. I mean, courage, that is exactly what you need to speak up during a tough Zoom call instead of just hiding on mute. Integrity is what builds trust across distributed teams where you literally can't see what everyone else is doing. Patience is what prevents that short-term reactive thinking in our instant gratification culture. And protecting your health, that is your absolute primary defense against digital burnout.
Now, we do need to impartially acknowledge the limitations of this highly individualistic approach. Personal responsibility is definitely vital, but focusing only on that can sometimes downplay real external realities that are just outside of a person's control. We have to recognize that structural barriers, things like economic inequality or unequal access to opportunities, they absolutely do exist and they really do impact outcomes.
But we can actually reconcile those external limitations with this really powerful piece of advice. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. See, while we absolutely cannot control every structural barrier or external issue out there, doing the inner work expands our own personal capacity. It makes us highly capable of handling and maximizing the things we can actually control. And that makes us way more resilient when we inevitably face those external barriers.
Building your foundation, a 30-day challenge.
All right, theory's great, but taking immediate action is what actually carves your character. So let's try this 3-step challenge, starting today. Step 1, identify just one single character quality that you want to improve. Step 2, pinpoint exactly where pressure exposes your weakness in that specific area. And step 3, choose just one daily behavior to strengthen it. Remember, lasting success comes from just a few simple disciplines practiced every single day.
To put that daily behavior into perspective, think about the difference between a victim mindset, like saying, "Ugh, my team never communicates properly," versus the unshakable responsibility of asking, "Okay, what expectation or process have I failed to establish here?" Just that one subtle shift in your daily behavior, it completely changes your trajectory. It takes you right out of the passenger seat and puts you firmly back in control of the wheel.
So here's the bottom line. Your goals might determine your destination, but your character determines whether you can actually sustain the results once you finally arrive. Building an indestructible foundation ensures you won't just achieve success, you will attract it, and you'll keep it. Subscribe so you don't miss an episode.